Have you ever been flashed? No, I don't mean like that. I mean when your precious photographs come back with that kind of muddy look and your subject has red and glowing eyes. Actually, you were documenting your friend's daughter's christening at the time, but sadly your photos look like you were really in attendance at a satanic rite. It is an absolute disaster and all your friends now are not talking to you. So what went wrong? Using flash equipment in some situations can often be a recipe for ruin if you don't really understand how flash works. The mechanics behind flash photography can be strangely confusing, for it involves calculating the distance over which an artificial burst of light travels. Flash, or strobe units for photography, are lights which emanate high-speed bursts of luminance. They are specifically used with still photography because of the nature of how we take photographs. Flash is used when we wish to enhance an image by using an external light source. The two types of flash photographies that are commonly described are on-off-camera flash and studio flash, and are utilised in completely different manners. On-camera flash is used in a situation where you have to move around within an unconfined space and often changing locations. This is the sort of use of flash photography that you see most generally with news photographers. Often when you see video of important news conferences, you will see thousands of flashlights going off when two participants make an action like shaking hands. These situations most commonly occur when there is a need to enhance the lighting for specific results. If you wish to use a low ISO so that you can get the sharpest rendering of the image and the light is too low, or you wish to avoid motion blur because the shutter speed is too slow, then the only alternative you have is to shoot with flash. Studio flash is typically used in very high production photos that are generally commercial in nature. It comprises of large and powerful flash units set on individual stands that can be directed specifically to illuminate particular objects. They often have attachments that have the facility to change the quality of light from soft to harsh or from widespread to a spot. Because they are heavy to carry, they are often housed in studios rather than taken out on location. To enhance your knowledge of your own individual flash unit, you could just simply read the flash specifications. Oops, you threw the manual away? Well, you can always try to find it here. They are an absolute font of information about the technical aspects of most cameras that have been manufactured in the last 15 years. Look through their archives and no doubt you will find something useful. Regardless of what flash system you use, what you do need to know are the practical limitations of your camera flash and what sort of things can be done to create a really well-lit flash photograph. In the case of our photographer who believed that they could rely on a small compact camera to light an entire cathedral, well, they were sadly mistaken about flash photography. Now, most of us really don't want to do interminable measurements with tape measures and mental mathematics before we shoot an event that is impossible to repeat. So it is handy to know that the amount of light that emanates from a flash varies from model to model. The amount of light that a flash produces is measured in terms known as the guide number, or GN. The higher the guide number is, the stronger the flashlight output will be, and the light from that flash will travel to a further distance to illuminate an object. So to fill an entire cathedral with flash would require some very large flash units with very high guide numbers, and that of course would be a quite expensive and impractical solution. So what is the best way to improve a shot where it's very low light? The simplest thing to do, of course, is to bump up your ISO so that it compensates for the lack of light. And while working with your ISO, shutter and aperture is the ideal situation, if your camera automatically sets all your functions and has a low flash guide number, then try and stay a medium distance from your subject. If you get too close with your flash, you are liable to burn out the detail in the subject, and if you are too far away, then you are liable to make the subject appear muddy and dark. Most cameras have enough flash capacity to evenly light a photograph taken within 2 metres of the subject. This means the ideal type of photograph is shot from the waist up. So next time you're taking photos in a darker situation, try and get within 2 metres of your subject, even if you have to become the extra godparent at the christening. In fact, many overseas cinematographers vote Australia to be one of the finest destinations in the world for filmmaking because of the light. There are certain times of the year, though, when taking photographs outdoors is just not really worth the effort unless you have enormous reserves of backup lighting to eliminate the shadows. Summertime barbecue lunches are a perfect example. When the sun is directly overhead and you expose your photograph correctly, you will find that deep, deep shadows often form under the eyes, nose, or even things like baseball caps, often distorting the way a subject looks. If you don't have the skin of a 5-year-old, everyone can look pretty old and haggard. The simplest remedy to rid yourself of shadowy blemishes is, of course, to move your subject into the shade under a beach umbrella or a tree. If you then fill the frame with your subject's face, you will be able to expose the photograph correctly and create a relatively even and flat lighting situation free of heavy contrast. Or you can incorporate that heavy contrast into the image's composition, much like the style of many of the oculi photographers. Or you can use flash to illuminate the shadows in broad daylight. When flash is used in this context, it is known as fill flash, and it's a case of flashing an object to balance the dark shadows with the natural brightness of the proposed photograph. All flash units have different guide numbers, and depending how large or small they are in your own unit, will dictate how effective the use of flash will be in large areas or over long distances. Next, a quick look at all the bits and pieces that we can use in photography. Until then, happy snapping.